Hey everyone, it's technology expert Burton Kelso here with another tech tip to help you get the most out of the technology in your life. Today we're talking about how to keep your router safe. Believe it or not, well, you probably do believe it, but Chinese folks, shouldn't say it like that, but the Chinese government and hackers are targeting American routers. Now, why would you think the Chinese would attack your router? Well, your router is probably one of the weaker points of your network because there's several things that people don't do to their routers in order to keep them safe. Routers obviously come from manufacturers overseas in China and Taiwan. So in many instances it's easy for them to get into your devices in order to wreak havoc and to get a hold of your network and your precious documents. So we're going to take a look at what you can do to keep your router safe. But before we talk about those tips, let's talk about what it looks like if your router has been, in fact, hacked, which is kind of a rare thing, and hacking is difficult, but it can happen. So, what does that look like? So, number one, your internet service seems to be slow. Now, this is kind of a loaded question because there's several things that you can do in order to make sure that your internet is in fact safe and just running slow because of other things that could be going on with your network. So the first thing that you need to do is to make sure that you're paying for the internet speed that you're supposed to be paying. So that would be a quick call to your internet service provider to find out what speed you're supposed to be getting, because sometimes your internet speed is running slow because that's what you're paying for. Or there may be a lot more traffic that's going on with your provider, and hence your internet access has run slow. So, how do you check your internet speed? Pretty darn simple. There's an awesome website that I like to recommend called speedtest.net. Now, speedtest.net gives you your router IP address, which kind of isn't a big deal because most people, I shouldn't say router, your internet address, because most people are on dynamic IP, which means it switches all the time, so criminals can't get access to your IP address. But once you visit speedtest.net, you can ignore the ads that are popping up by clicking the X's, or you can just click on the go button and you will get a estimate of how fast your internet speed is. So your download speed, which is what it tests first, is how quickly information is coming down from the internet. Next speed is your upload speed, which is showing you how quickly information is leaving your computer and going to the internet. So as you can see, not bad for someone who's quite a ways from their wireless router and streaming video. So that is considered a pretty good speed. But again, check with your ISP to see what you should be pulling to verify that your internet speed is, in fact, what you're paying for, and that there aren't any outages in your area that's causing slow internet. Other things that you can test for as far as slow internet is concerned is to make sure if you're connected wirelessly that you verify that your wireless adapter in your laptop or your smartphone or whatever is working the way that it's supposed to. If not, doesn't mean a hacker's in your router. It means that you got something going on with the wireless connection. Next is unknown devices connected to your wireless network. And for this, you may need to call in the expertise of an IT expert, because the only way that you can tell if there are unknown devices connected to your router is logging into the settings of the router itself. Under most circumstances, if you open up your favorite web browser and type in the IP address for your router, you can log in the settings and see how many devices are connected to your internet. Another way, if I can pull this up, is to go with a piece of software called Angry IP. And let's see if I have it. If not, I'll show you the website that you can go to download Angry IP. And I haven't used this in a while, but Angry IP is a piece of software that you can download to your computer. It will scan the IP addresses of your devices and it will let you know if there are any unknown devices connected. And this is the tip that my people who are watching this video want to use as opposed to logging into the settings of your router. So let's look at what Angry IP looks like. So Angry IP can be found at angryip.org. Let's move that around. Actually, let's maximize that window. So angryip.org, you can download the software, run a scan, and here's an idea of what that would look like. So if it's red, it's a problem, or it's non-existent. If it's green, that means that there is devices connected to your internet. And what you want to look for are devices that you can look at and find out if they belong to you. You will see things such as your smartphone, your printer, anything that's connected to your wired or wireless network. Angry IP will find for you immediately. Now, if you see devices that you don't know, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that Chinese criminals are in your router, but it will give you an idea what's connected, and you need to identify it because it could be strangers logged into your network. So the next sign that you have been hacked is unknown software. Now, these are all known pieces of software that we have here, but if you see software that has popped up on your device or your computer, could mean that Chinese or other hackers have logged into your router, become part of your merry little network, and they are trying to download keylogger software or other malicious pieces of software to monitor what's going on and to try to collect information. Again, kind of rare, but again, those are the things that you need to look out for when it comes to your router and your router safety. Next is one of my favorites, which is, for some odd reason, you can't log into your router to check the settings or to go over what Burton is telling you to go over. Now, again, doesn't mean that there's a hacker inside your router, but it could be a sign that there is, especially if you left the default settings for your router and you can't log in. That's a problem. Now, most routers, you have an admin user that you can log in and look at your settings, but if you can't remember, it's a simple thing, and again, you want the services of an IT pro before you do this. So this little pin can actually reset your router because there's a little button on the back. You can reset it back to factory defaults. But before you do that, you may reset how your network is set up and mess things up. So call in a pro, because routers are pretty complicated animals. And you don't want to just go in and just reset things because you think there's a problem. Ask for help. Now, another problem that could occur, doesn't necessarily mean a hacker, but it's something to watch out for, is your DNS query. And basically, DNS is the website or the direction of the website that will let you visit internet. So for example, if you want to get a gateway to the internet on a office computer, the DNS server normally is your office server. So the DNS doles out the IP address at all the computers connected to your office network, and then you can visit various websites. For home users, DNS settings are coming from your router. So if someone goes into your router and changes the DNS service, or domain name system is what DNS stands for, I hope. Correct me obviously in the comments if I'm wrong. But anyway, if someone redirects or changes your DNS settings in your router, it could direct you to a nefarious or a bad website. So rather than going through your internet service DNS, could be going through some criminals. I like how I got tongue-tied there. But anyway, it can definitely cause issues when you're surfing the web if you're going to a DNS site that is for someone's malicious server as opposed to what your network should be. So now let's get to the tip section, because this is always the fun part. So what do you need to do to make sure that Chinese hackers or any other hackers can't get into your router? Well, step number 1 actually equals 5. So 1 equals 5, right? Not really. It's just there's a big 5 on the next screen. So your router, you should change it out every 5 years. Why? Well, just think your internet router is providing Wi Fi everywhere, and it's allowing an internet connection come to all of your devices in your home or office. So it's working 24/7, 365 days a year. And thing gets worn out after a while. But also, technology changes quite a bit as far as internet services are concerned. So, update that router every 5 years and make sure that you're using the latest and greatest to protect your stuff. Sometimes router information sleeps or sneaks out, criminals get a hold of that information and they can get into your router. But newer routers are always a step ahead of the game, so it's always good to refresh that or replace it every now and then. Now, how do you do that? Well, if you're like most of you, you're probably leasing your router from your internet service company. If that's the case, just give them a ring-a-ding-ding and tell them, hey, it's time for a new router. It's their equipment, so they either will ship you one or they will send a service technician out to replace your router. How do you know if you're leasing one? Take a look at your cable bill to find out if you're actually leasing a router, because it'll be listed on your cable bill. Now, if you've purchased your own router because you want to save some money, then just go out and get whatever brand router you have. Configure it and set it up, or have your favorite IT professional do that for you. Now, I've got a whole video about should I lease or buy my router outright. You should check it out. So the next thing that you want to do, especially if you're buying a new router, is to make sure that you're using WPA3, which is the latest security protocol that wireless settings and routers are using. So back in the good old days, we started out with WEP. Don't ask me what this stands for. I always forget. But then we moved to WPA, and most router internet services use WPA2. But now the latest is WPA3. So if you were to buy a new router, make sure you're getting WPA3, because it's going to offer the most robust protection from criminals in this day and age. If your router doesn't allow you to use WPA2, at the very least, you've got an old router that you need to replace. Now, as far as the WPA settings on your router, in most circumstances, they're backwards compatible. But realistically, if you've got older devices that won't connect with WPA3 and will only do WEP or WPA, time to get rid of those devices and go with something new, because it's just going to help you stay safer on the internet. Now, a setting that's normally turned on a router, you may have to double check and make sure that it's set up that way, and that is your firewall. Hope you recognize those flames of hackers trying to break into your stuff. So firewall essentially makes your computer invisible to all the criminals out there on the internet. Now, again, by default, your router should already have its firewall setting turned on. But again, you've got to log into the settings of your router by opening up your favorite browser and typing the IP address of your router to get into that. But yes, log in and make sure that the settings of the firewall are turned on. And I'm sure probably some of you with different brands of modems like Netgear and Linksys and Aris and a few others are probably Asus. I cheated because it's like on the next screen there. Are probably wondering, why am I not going into the settings of that? Because every router is different as far as settings. So either you have to pull out the old manual, if you're not familiar with it, call a tech guy to help you with that stuff. I'm informing you of this so that way you'll know what to look for to keep your router safe. So next, you'll love this screen. Change the default settings on your router, because as you can see, as the arrow is pointing, on most routers, your username is admin and the password is admin. Not a big deal what is a big deal? Because it just means that criminals can easily log into your router, change some settings, allow their devices to connect, turn your router, your neighborhood router at your home or your office, into the what's the word that I'm looking for? The hotspot or the coffee shop of your neighborhood or of your office, and monitor your stuff. So make sure that you change the default password to log into your router so it's harder for criminals and other nefarious people to get into the settings of your router to wreak havoc. And then finally, this one's a toughie, but update that stupid thing. That router needs to be updated. Now, the bad news about routers is that you never know when it's time for an update, which is why you need to check on a regular basis to verify that your router is up to date. Again, by going into the settings of your router or calling your favorite IT professional to come out and help you, you need to log into the firmware settings of your router to update the little chip to make sure that your router is protected from the latest threats. Like most software companies, hardware companies put out bug bounties, which challenges the hacker community to see if they can break in to a piece of software or a device. If they're successful, they get a reward in the form of a bounty. You get the reward in the form of an update. So, although it's hard, make sure that you're checking the settings of your router on a regular basis to make sure it is up to date. Now, I will say that if you have a router that you're leasing from your internet service provider, in most instances, they'll do those updates for you, which is why it's sometimes a good idea to go ahead and pay money to have that router leased from your ISP as opposed to going out and buying your own router. Buying your own router, even though you may save some money, causes a little bit extra work. So you would have to log into your router probably at least once a quarter to make sure that it's up to date. Now, some brands of routers will alert you when it's time for an update and at least download them for you, but you have to install them because when you update your router, it'll bring down your network temporarily as the update commences. Once it's done, your network will come up as normal, but again, updating that router, make sure that your network is safe, your router is safe from the latest threats, and you can have peace of mind knowing that all of the devices under your router network are safe and secure from Chinese or other criminals out there. So with that said, if you've got comments or questions about routers, and I know you probably will after this video because unfortunately this could be an hour-long video going through each brand of router and how you do this stuff. But you need to be aware of the things that need to be taken care of, so hence I made the video. And with every video, I always ask, be sure to leave some comments, like, love, share it with your friends that you like this video. There's supposed to be a logo up there. There we go. It just magically appeared. I couldn't get it in the right position. But be sure to like, subscribe. Either my company Integral or myself, Burton Kelso, the technology expert. And make sure you're getting the latest tips and tricks that are designed to help you stay safe from all of the cyber threats out there and to make you a little bit more tech savvy. So, I love technology. I've read all the manuals and I'm serious about making technology fun, safe, and easy to use for everyone. So take care of yourself and do many things to make you smile. And thanks for watching.